4.5%. That is the obesity rate in Japan, a country of 125 million people, not a remote island village, not a population of monks, one of the most urbanized, overworked, stress-saturated nations on Earth. Meanwhile, the United States sits above 40%. Most of Western Europe is above 30%, and Japan has held that 4.5% for decades. On top of that, the average Japanese person lives to 84, the longest average lifespan on the planet. And here's the part that should stop you cold. They eat rice 3 times a day. They do not go to the gym. They count 0 calories. Something is happening there that nobody in mainstream nutrition is talking about, and today I am going to show you exactly what it is. Before we go any further, subscribe to Dr. Waterling right now and hit like. Your doctor has 12 minutes per appointment and a prescription pad. The system gets paid per visit, not per your recovery. I am trying to get to 100,000 subscribers. People who actually want the truth. Do not wait. Do it now. I have been a practicing physician for 15 years, and I can tell you, the majority of patients I see with excess weight, sluggish metabolism, chronic fatigue, and constant hunger have tried everything. They cut calories. They tracked carbs. They eliminated fat. Month 1, down 11 pounds. Year 2, up 15. That is not weak willpower. That is physiology. Your body is smarter than any diet ever invented, which is exactly why I started looking beyond the standard Western nutrition guidelines for real answers. What I found in the clinical research on traditional Japanese eating reorganized everything I thought I knew about metabolism. That is, the process your body uses to convert food into energy or store it as fat. Japanese people do not count calories. They do not eliminate rice. They do not drink protein shakes. They eat specific foods that reprogram at the cellular level the way their bodies store and burn fat. Every single one of those foods is available to you today. Let us start with the foundation, the piece that most nutritionists, for reasons I find genuinely baffling, prefer not to discuss. Most people operate on a simple belief. Weight is a math problem. Eat more than you burn, you gain. Eat less than you burn, you lose. Clean logic, perfect on paper, completely wrong in practice. Because that formula leaves out the single most important variable, your gut microbiome. Your gut microbiome is a community of trillions of bacteria living inside your intestines. I want you to sit with that number for a moment. You have more bacteria in your gut than cells in your entire body. And they do not just digest food. They regulate your hunger hormones. They control the level of inflammation throughout your body. They determine how quickly your body processes and burns fat. They literally send signals to your brain telling it to eat or to stop. Think of your gut as a factory. When that factory is healthy, everything runs efficiently. The bacteria, your workers, process incoming food, produce beneficial compounds, and send a clear signal to your brain. Enough. Stop eating. But feed that factory years of processed food, refined sugar, low fiber products, and antibiotics, and most of the good workers die off. Their place gets taken by different bacterial species. And these new workers do the exact opposite. They amplify hunger signals, trigger chronic inflammation, and instruct the body to store fat. Specifically, visceral fat. Visceral fat is not the fat you can see in a mirror. You cannot grab it. It wraps around your internal organs, your liver, your pancreas, your intestines from the inside. And it is not passive storage. Visceral fat is an active endocrine gland. That means it functions like a hormone-producing organ. It constantly secretes inflammatory molecules called cytokines. These cytokines drive insulin resistance. That is, when your cells stop responding properly to insulin, the hormone that controls blood sugar. The same cytokines trigger atherosclerosis, the buildup of plaques inside your blood vessels. They are directly linked to elevated cancer risk. Visceral fat kills quietly, without obvious symptoms, and it accumulates precisely when the microbiome is running wrong. Now, why are Japanese people protected from this? In 2018, the journal Nutrition Journal published a large-scale comparative study spanning 132 countries. Researchers evaluated how closely each country's diet matched the traditional Japanese pattern. The criteria were specific: more fish, more soy, more seaweed, more vegetables. Less red meat, less dairy, less processed food. The result was unambiguous. The closer a country's diet was to the Japanese pattern, the lower its obesity rate. And this was statistically independent of GDP, education level, healthcare quality, or smoking rates. The statistical significance was p less than 0.001. That is not a coincidence. That is cause and effect. And then there is the fact that should permanently end the debate about Japanese genetics. When Japanese people immigrate to Western countries and adopt a Western diet, their obesity rates match the local population within a single generation. No protective genetics, no special metabolic wiring, only the food. Let us now go through the specific mechanisms and specific products, one by one. The first mechanism is fermentation and microbiome restructuring. The most powerful weapon in the Japanese dietary arsenal against excess weight is fermented food. And first among them is natto. Natto looks strange to most Western eyes. Stringy, pungent, sticky, with a smell that makes first-timers put the lid back on and walk away. That is a mistake. Because natto is, in my clinical assessment, the most potent natural tool for restructuring the gut microbiome that I am aware of, natto is made from soybeans fermented with a bacterium called Bacillus subtilis. What happens inside your gut after you eat it? It comes down to two families of bacteria. They are called Bacteroides and Firmicutes. You do not need to memorize those names, you just need to understand what they represent. In people with obesity, the Firmicutes proportion is consistently elevated, and the Bacteroides proportion is consistently reduced. This has been demonstrated in dozens of independent studies across multiple countries. Regular natto consumption literally shifts that ratio toward the lean profile, meaning you are eating a food that reprograms the bacterial composition of your gut. A study published in the Journal of Molecular Nutrition and Food Research confirmed a dose-dependent effect. The more natto participants consumed, the greater the reduction in visceral fat. Natto suppressed fatty acid synthesis in the liver and simultaneously accelerated fat breakdown. And critically, the fermented product works substantially more powerfully than plain soybeans without fermentation. Why does fermentation matter so much? Raw soybeans contain anti-nutritional compounds, specifically trypsin inhibitors. These are molecular blockers that prevent your body from absorbing the beneficial components. Fermentation destroys them. After fermentation, bioavailable isoflavones are released. Those are plant compounds with significant anti-inflammatory properties, along with the enzyme nattokinase and live probiotic bacteria. Unfermented soy is a locked safe full of valuables. Fermentation is the key that opens it. A separate note on nattokinase. This enzyme exists only in natto, nowhere else in nature. It has a well-documented ability to reduce blood viscosity, lower the risk of blood clots, and improve circulation. This is why natto has traditionally been eaten at breakfast in Japan, in the morning when the cardiovascular risk window is highest. That is not folk superstition, it is biochemically sound clinical practice. In a study conducted by researchers at Jilin Academy of Agricultural Sciences, obese laboratory rats were given natto powder for 8 weeks. The results were measurable: reduced body weight, normalized cholesterol metabolism through suppression of LXR receptors in the liver, those are receptors that regulate fat synthesis, and a significant microbiome restructuring confirmed by metagenomic analysis. Bacteroidetes increased, Firmicutes decreased. Not anecdote, measured biological change. A second study gave natto bacteria to diet-induced obese mice for 8 weeks. Body weight dropped. Epididymal and perirenal fat, that is, internal fat around the reproductive organs and kidneys, decreased. Liver weight fell. Blood triglycerides and total cholesterol came down. The bacteria suppressed fatty acid synthesis and accelerated fat catabolism, meaning they sped up fat breakdown. In practical terms, 50 grams of natto per day, that is one standard Japanese package, eat it at breakfast with a small amount of soy sauce and mustard, exactly as it is eaten in Japan. Do not heat it. High temperature kills the bacteria. Bacillus subtilis is resistant to stomach acid and arrives at the intestine alive, which makes natto more effective than most probiotic capsules from a pharmacy. Because live bacteria embedded in a food matrix survive the journey better than isolated strains in a gelatin capsule. Cannot find fresh natto? Frozen natto from any Asian grocery store works just as well. After thawing, the bacteria fully restore their activity. The second mechanism is activation of brown fat through green tea catechins. And there is a widespread misconception here that I need to correct first. Many of you drink green tea, and you think that is enough. It is not enough, because standard bagged green tea and Japanese matcha are fundamentally different products, different by an order of magnitude in their concentration of active compounds. Matcha is a powder made from the whole tea leaf. You do not steep the leaf and discard it. You drink it entirely. The difference is enormous. One serving of matcha contains 137 times more EGCG than a standard cup of green tea. EGCG stands for epigallocatechin 3-gallate. Simpler description, it is a powerful plant antioxidant that does something no pharmacological agent I know of can do without side effects. It activates brown fat. What is brown fat? Your body contains two types of fat tissue. White fat is the kind you want to get rid of. It stores energy. Brown fat is your internal furnace. It does not store energy. It burns energy, generating heat. This process is called thermogenesis. And the more active your brown fat, the more calories your body burns at rest, without any exercise. Brown fat's molecular ignition switch is a protein called UCP1, uncoupling protein 1. A systematic review in the journal Nutrients, covering 10 experimental studies, confirmed that green tea catechins increase UCP1 activity. They flip that switch. Once activated, brown fat starts using white fat as its fuel source. Your body is literally incinerating its own fat reserves from the inside. Researchers at the University of Geneva conducted a key experiment. A green tea extract containing 90 milligrams of EGCG and 50 milligrams of caffeine increased 24-hour energy expenditure by 4%. The respiratory quotient, the measure of which fuel source the body is burning, dropped from 0.88 to 0.85. That is a measurable metabolic shift. The body switched from carbohydrates to fat as its primary fuel. 4% may sound modest, but calculated over a full year, that represents hundreds of additional grams of fat burned, with no change in diet, no exercise required. Here is the critical detail. When the same amount of caffeine was given without catechins, the metabolic effect was zero. The mechanism requires the synergy. Catechins and caffeine together amplify the norepinephrine signal that initiates fat burning. That norepinephrine is a hormone your body releases to trigger fat breakdown. Alone, each component barely moves the needle. Together, they work. This is also why matcha extract capsules underperform compared to the actual drink. You break apart the native matrix of interacting compounds. How to prepare matcha correctly. 1 to 2 teaspoons of ceremonial grade powder, approximately 2 to 3 grams. Water at 79 degrees Fahrenheit. That temperature is not arbitrary. Boiling water destroys up to 60% of the EGCG before the drink even reaches your mouth. Whisk the powder until fully dissolved. Add a slice of lemon. Ascorbic acid increases EGCG absorption up to 6 times. No cow's milk. The protein casein physically binds to catechin molecules and reduces their bioavailability by 80%. Plant-based milk is acceptable. Drink matcha 30 minutes before your main meal. At that point, brown fat activation is primed and you get peak thermogenic effect precisely as your body begins processing incoming calories. That is not an arbitrary recommendation. That is an understanding of physiology. The third mechanism is fiber, butyrate, and hunger suppression. This one is less dramatic in a marketing sense. No catchy name, no visible result in a week, but it is the mechanism that creates long-term weight control, without hunger and without relapse. The traditional Japanese diet is rich in seaweed, root vegetables, barley, tofu, and fermented vegetables. All of these are sources of fiber, both soluble and insoluble fiber simultaneously, in a combination that the Western diet almost never delivers. In the Fukuoka Diabetes Registry study, covering more than 4,300 Japanese patients, high dietary fiber intake was significantly associated with lower body mass index, lower fasting glucose, lower triglycerides, and lower systemic inflammation, even after controlling for age, sex, and total calorie intake. Fiber works independently of how much you eat. It changes what happens to food once it is inside you. The mechanism is straightforward. Fiber feeds your beneficial gut bacteria. In response, they produce short-chain fatty acids. The most important of these is butyrate, and butyrate is not just a chemical compound, it is a signaling molecule. It does two fundamentally important things. First, butyrate reinforces the intestinal wall. A healthy gut lining functions as a reliable barrier. It allows nutrients into the bloodstream and blocks bacterial toxins. When that barrier weakens, toxins leak into circulation, triggering chronic systemic inflammation. This is commonly called leaky gut syndrome, and that inflammation is one of the primary drivers of visceral fat accumulation. Butyrate repairs that barrier. Second, butyrate sends a satiety signal through the gut-brain axis directly to your brain. You stop feeling hungry, not because you are forcing yourself, but because your body received the correct biochemical message. That is the difference between a willpower-based diet and physiology-based eating. One requires daily self-combat. The other runs automatically. A cross-sectional study of the Japanese population showed that non-obese people who regularly ate barley had significantly more butyrate-producing bacteria in their gut than those who ate only white rice. One food. Direct, measurable connection to microbiome composition. Now, specific products, dosages, preparation, everything you need to actually implement this. Natto, 50 grams per day, breakfast. Soy sauce and mustard, exactly as eaten in Japan. Do not heat it. Matcha, 1 to 2 teaspoons per day, water at 79 degrees, with lemon, without cow's milk. Morning and early afternoon only. Miso soup, 1 portion daily. Use only unpasteurized miso paste. Pasteurization kills every single probiotic bacterium, converting a living food into a dead one. 1 tablespoon of paste dissolved in warm, not boiling, water or dashi broth. Add seaweed, tofu, scallions. 1 bowl gives you probiotics, prebiotic fiber, iodine, and amino acids simultaneously. Seaweed, wakame or kombu. 5 to 10 grams of dried seaweed, 3 to 4 times per week. Seaweed contains fucoxanthin, a unique pigment found in no land-based plant. Fucoxanthin activates the same UCP1 switch, your brown fat ignition protein, but does it directly inside white fat cells. It converts white fat depots into fat tissue with the characteristics of brown fat, turning those storage depots into self-burning engines. Add seaweed to soups, salads, and rice dishes. Fatty fish, 3 portions per week. Salmon, mackerel, sardines, herring, any fish high in omega-3. Minimum dose, 284 milligrams of omega-3 per serving. The specific forms EPA and DHA, these are the bioactive omega-3 fatty acids, support brown fat activity and reduce systemic inflammation simultaneously. Grill it, bake it, or boil it. Deep frying completely destroys omega-3 and adds pro-inflammatory oils, the direct opposite of the effect you are trying to create. Fermented vegetables, sukemono, 30 to 50 grams per day. Look specifically for naturally fermented varieties, not vinegar pickled. Vinegar brine contains no live cultures. The most effective option is nukazuke, vegetables fermented in rice bran. This is a rich source of lactobacillus bacteria that further diversify your microbiome. Diversity of microbiome species is itself a key marker of gut health. Barley or mixed rice. Mugi gohan, 70% white rice and 30% barley, at least once daily. Barley contains beta-glucan, a soluble fiber that is particularly effective at feeding butyrate-producing bacteria. This is not an exotic ingredient. Barley is available in any grocery store. Now let us talk about the structure of eating, because in Japan, it is not only what people eat, but how they eat it. The Japanese dietary structure is called ichiju sansai, 1 soup and 3 side dishes, plus rice. In practice, a meal looks like this. A bowl of miso soup, a protein component, fish, tofu, or natto, and 2 small vegetable side dishes. No calorie arithmetic, no food scale. The structure of the plate itself regulates macronutrient balance and portion size. Japanese people do not think about macros. They follow a habitual meal structure, and it does the work for them. And separately, the principle of hara hachi bu. This is an Okinawan concept that translates as eat to 80% full. Stop slightly before you feel satiated. The physiology here is simple. The satiety signal travels from your gut to your brain in approximately 20 minutes. If you eat fast, you overshoot the target before your brain can respond. When you stop at 80%, 20 minutes later, you feel exactly right, satisfied, not heavy. This one principle reduces daily caloric intake by 15 to 20%. Without hunger, without counting anything. And one more practical principle, a timing one. In most Japanese households, dinner ends by 7 or 8 in the evening, and breakfast is at 7 in the morning. That is 11 to 12 hours without food. Not a deliberate fasting protocol, simply a cultural rhythm. But during those hours, the body switches to burning stored fat. Beneficial gut bacteria operate undisturbed. The liver undergoes repair. That window is a free tool available to everyone. Finish dinner before 8. Do not eat until 7 in the morning. Nothing complicated about it. Now, let us address the mistakes. The most common ones I see in patients who try all of this and do not get results. Mistake 1, inconsistency. People try Natto for a week, see no change, and stop. But the gut microbiome restructures over 4 to 8 weeks. That is not my estimate. That is the data from microbiome research. Stable changes in bacterial composition require time and regularity. Eating Natto once changes nothing. Bacillus subtilis needs to establish itself in your gut, competitively displace unwanted strains, and shift the bacteroides to firmicutes ratio. That is a process, like renovating a building. It does not happen in a day. Japanese people eat these foods every day, year after year. Not in courses, not on a cycle, continuously. Consistency is the mechanism. Mistake 2, boiling water. This one destroys a significant portion of the benefit from 2 key products. Pour boiling water over matcha. You destroy up to 60% of EGCG right in the cup. Drop miso paste into boiling broth. You kill all the probiotic bacteria in that instant. The rule is simple. 79 degrees for matcha. For miso, you always add the paste after you have removed the pot from the heat. The water must stop bubbling. Only then dissolve the paste. Mistake 3, supplements instead of whole foods. I regularly see patients who buy nattokinase capsules instead of natto, green tea extract tablets instead of matcha, probiotic powder instead of miso. They assume they are getting the same thing in a convenient package. They are not. Natto is nattokinase plus live Bacillus subtilis plus isoflavones plus soluble fiber plus vitamin K2 plus complete protein. All of these components work in synergy. They amplify each other's effects. A nattokinase capsule is one enzyme without everything else. You are taking a photocopy of one page instead of the whole book. The whole food always outperforms the isolated extract. This is a foundational principle of evidence-based nutrition. Mistake 4, measuring only the scale. This is the most destructive mistake in terms of motivation. Someone starts eating natto, drinking matcha, adding miso and seaweed. 3 weeks in, they check the scale, plus or minus 0. They conclude nothing is working. Meanwhile, their waist has dropped 2 centimeters. Their triglyceride levels have fallen. Their energy has improved. They just were not measuring any of that. Visceral fat and muscle tissue have similar densities. When visceral fat is lost and lean tissue simultaneously increases slightly, the scale does not move. But metabolically, the improvement is profound. This is why I tell my patients, take the scale off the bathroom floor, buy a measuring tape, measure your waist circumference once a week, in the morning, on an empty stomach, at the level of your navel. That is the real indicator of metabolic health. For men, the healthy threshold is under 37 inches. For women, under 31.5 inches. Anything above those numbers and you are already in an elevated risk category. Mistake 5, combining the right foods with the wrong foundation. Drinking matcha alongside a pastry accomplishes nothing. Eating natto at breakfast and fast food at lunch accomplishes nothing. Japanese foods work as a system. They shift the microbiome, reduce inflammation, activate brown fat, but only against a dietary background that is not working against those same effects. You do not need to fully convert to Japanese cuisine, but the basic principles, more fiber, less sugar, less ultra-processed food, need to be the foundation. Now, the practical protocol. Not theory, specific actions every day. Morning. Breakfast using the Ichiju Sansai structure. A bowl of cooked rice with 30% barley mixed in. 50 grams of natto with soy sauce and mustard. a bowl of miso soup, unpasteurized paste, wakame, tofu, scallion. 30 minutes before eating, a cup of matcha. 79 degrees, lemon, no milk. Midday. Lunch can be your normal routine, but add a portion of fatty fish at least 3 times per week. Salmon, mackerel, sardines. Grilled or baked, not fried. If no fish is available, tofu or eggs as a protein source. A small side of fermented vegetables, 30 grams, as a condiment or side. Evening. Dinner before 8 in the evening. Same structure. Protein, 2 vegetable sides, rice with barley or simply cooked vegetables. No matcha in the evening. The caffeine content can disrupt sleep. After dinner, the eating window closes until the following morning. This is not a diet. It is a way of eating. There are no forbidden foods in it, only foods you add every day. Psychologically, that distinction is critical. You are not removing something, you are adding. The brain processes restriction as stress and eventually triggers a compensation mechanism. Addition is neutral. This is why the Japanese approach sustains itself and Western diets do not. One question I hear constantly: does this only work for Japanese people? Do they have different digestive enzymes, a different gut? No. There is no such thing as a biologically distinct Japanese stomach. The fundamental physiology of human digestion is universal. Bacillus subtilis from Natto behaves identically in the gut of a Japanese person, an American, a Ukrainian, or a Brazilian. Matcha catechins activate UCP1 regardless of nationality. Fucoxanthin from seaweed acts on white fat cells in every human population identically. The only thing that differs is habit, and habit can be changed. And let me say one more thing directly. Some of you are already calculating, this sounds complicated, too many unfamiliar products, too much change. Let us count the actual cost. Natto is cheaper than most pharmacy probiotics. Matcha is cheaper than a coffee shop drink. A jar of miso paste costs a few dollars and lasts months in your refrigerator. A can of sardines is available in any grocery store. Dried wakame is sold in most large supermarkets and every Asian food market. Barley is one of the cheapest grains on the shelf. The total daily cost of eating by Japanese principles is less than a single meal at an average restaurant. This is accessible to everyone. Now, something I want to say, not as a television doctor, but as someone who has watched this play out in actual patients. Weight gain with age is not destiny. It is not written into your DNA. Metabolic decline is not inevitable. People who maintain a healthy metabolism at 60, 70, 80 years old are not doing anything extreme. They are simply feeding their bodies the right signals every day. A diverse gut microbiome, active brown fat, low systemic inflammation, stable blood sugar. All of these systems exist in your body right now. They are not broken. They have simply been given the wrong instructions. And that can change, starting with tomorrow's breakfast. Here is something clinically relevant to this entire conversation. After the age of 45, the rate of visceral fat accumulation accelerates noticeably. This is tied to shifting hormonal levels. In women, estrogen declines. In men, testosterone decreases, combined with a gradual decline in brown fat activity. The foods we have discussed today become especially important in the second half of life. So I am genuinely curious about who is watching this channel. Write your age in the comments. I want to understand which age groups this topic is most urgent for. That will directly shape which subjects I cover in upcoming videos. Here is your practical takeaway. Short and clear, the things to remember and act on. 1. Japan's 4.5% obesity rate is not genetics. It is specific foods eaten daily, confirmed across 132 countries. 2. Natto restructures the gut microbiome toward the lean bacterial profile, reduces visceral fat in a dose-dependent manner, and suppresses hepatic fat synthesis. 50 grams per day at breakfast. 3. Matcha delivers 137 times more EGCG than bagged green tea. EGCG activates brown fat through the UCP1 protein, increases 24-hour energy expenditure by 4%, and shifts the body from carbohydrates to fat as primary fuel. 1 to 2 teaspoons per day, water at 79 degrees, with lemon without cow's milk. 4. Unpasteurized miso paste provides live probiotics and prebiotic fiber simultaneously. 1 bowl of soup per day. Paste goes into warm water only, never boiling. 5. Seaweed contains fucoxanthin, which activates UCP1 directly inside white fat cells, converting fat storage tissue into fat-burning tissue. 5 to 10 grams of dried wakame or kombu 3 to 4 times per week. 6. Fatty fish 3 times per week supports brown fat activity and reduces inflammation through EPA and DHA. Grilled or baked, never deep fried. 7. Fermented vegetables and barley further diversify the microbiome and expand the population of butyrate-producing bacteria. 8. The Ichiju Sansai meal structure and the Harahachi-bu principle, stopping at 80% full, naturally control portions without calorie counting. 9. Measure waist circumference, not just body weight. That is your accurate marker of visceral fat and metabolic health. 10. Finish dinner before 8 in the evening. Do not eat until 7 in the morning. 11 to 12 hours of overnight fasting, a free, zero-effort fat-burning window. Your metabolism is a living, adaptable system. It responds to what you put on your plate today, not what you did last year. Right now, you have the information. You have the tools. Start tomorrow morning. Your doctor is not going to walk you through any of this at your next appointment. There is no billing code for fixing your metabolism with food, and there is no pharmaceutical margin on Natto. The system is built to manage your condition, not resolve it. I built this channel to tell you what that system will not. Subscribe to Dr. Waterling, leave a like, and help us reach 100,000 subscribers, because the more of us there are, the louder this message gets.